that day on issues which the countries and in the national community needs to focus upon. So as you focus on the Customs Day, firstly let me appreciate the fact that I went through your museum, and it is very interesting that people may not be aware, and somehow or the other when you open up your area and you're building for people to see the history of Pakistan, I think the people should be taken in more frequently into your museum to see the genesis of customs itself, and the fact that how have you evolved in what manner. And it reminded me, in fact some photographs reminded me of issues during the formation of this country and the struggle for independence. The history is full of that, and you have photographs to back that up, and you put four faces behind incidents, and that's very important. As I come across here, my basic feeling is that when you talk about customs, you talk about individuals like us who have been traveling and our interaction with customs over the years. You talk about goods as they move as far as trade is concerned. And you talk about issues of economy where smuggling and the smuggling of narcotics also becomes a very important factor in the upbringing of society. And it's a very dangerous trend as far as narcotics is concerned. It's a very dangerous trend despite all efforts. For example, by even superpowers like the United States, the smuggling of narcotics still takes place, and it is surprising the number of deaths in the United States, for example, has increased, and the number of people suffering from narcotic abuse has also increased over a period of time. You can create walls, you can create borders, you can watch those borders, but on one side there is your ingenuity in trying to manage those borders and to prevent smuggling of narcotics, goods or trade hidden in trade goods. But at the same time there's ingenuity on the side of the corrupt and the criminals, and they try to break every code which you put in. So it's a continuous battle. For example, the printing of currency notes, there are always forgers around, and then the governments look into technology which can make it difficult for the forger to detect. For example, crimes in Pakistan have been committed, and with the help of technology and with the help of telephones and looking at the sites where something like that has happened, or to put the criminal into jail, you look at technology, you look at that evidence. Technology is improving very fast. You've talked about, mashallah, smart borders and seamless trade and a single window operation. Technology is improving tremendously fast. Nobody could have thought today that a cashier, for example, in a store would always keep on listing things. There is, very strangely, very unique thing I must tell you. When I visited India a few times, and I visited frequently, the jewelers in the big cities which I saw in Delhi and elsewhere, every day they will stop their work at 5 o'clock and they will spend 1.5 hours or 2 hours physically looking at every piece of jewelry and recording it every day. And that's a physical phenomenon. And I've wondered about that. I've not seen that happen in Pakistan in the jewelry also, because they do it every day so that they know they have their hands on somebody who could steal. Today, goods have, in goods like, for example, in concerns like Amazon.com, have individual markers which are followed throughout. As finally it lands into the hand of a customer, the stocking of goods in stores is done electronically. There will be a time when each and every piece of the custom good inside a container will have a marker, tag marker. There will be cameras inside containers from the start to the end. You see, when I enter any country, they ask me a question: did you pack your bags yourself? And before I depart, people tell me, don't allow anybody to handle whatever you are taking along. And I remember a story of one of my patients The story is about in the 80s, one of my patients and I did some work, some dentistry on him, and he was getting married. And I put in a temporary appliance, but he started looking good from the temporary appliance also. And he had paid up his dues, and it was expected that after 4 or 5 days of marriage he will come back and we'll finalize the thing. And he didn't come back. After 4 or 5 years he came back. And I said, what happened? Where did you go? It's a pretty long honeymoon. So he said, my honeymoon was spent in a New York jail. And I asked him, what happened? How did you land in a New York jail? And he said, somebody at the, who was my friend, asked me to carry the next, after 3 days after the wedding, we were going for 5 days to the US, and he gave me a photo album. And he said, this is your photo album, and take it along. And then he says, when he landed in New York, the customs officer put a needle on the back binding of the album, and there was white powder coming out from there. So these incidents have also happened. And what happened when I visited Saudi Arabia for Umrah, the Consul General from Jeddah informed me about the number of people who are behind bars, for example, who have been involved in smuggling of narcotics. And in Saudi Arabia, probably all I know is that after a certain amount, the person is sentenced to death. As lesser than that amount, it is handled. And the consulate and the embassy were insisting with me that there must be an officer of anti-narcotics officer who should make people aware and look and help us. So smuggling will still continue, will continue. I must commend you, all your honest officers, mashallah, have secured our borders, and thank you very much, and Pakistan thanks you. But then at the same time, there may be black sheep around. And there is a huge amount of smuggling. There are different reports which came out while I was a member of the National Assembly. A report came out from FBR, which FBR subsequently denied. And I grilled them even then that how can you deny a report which was requisitioned by you, the author was a custom appraisement officer. I don't remember the name, but it was a good report, and the amount of smuggling they were talking about was huge. So that means there is a tremendous burden on you. With borders, people fly in, probably that's a very small part of the smuggling operation, because the money-wise, the major smuggling operation takes place through the sea or through the land. And we have relatively porous borders. And there is good fencing along our eastern border, which is fine, which helps. But there may some areas in the south of Pakistan where the border are still not as secure, so smuggling takes place around that route. But the border along Iran and Afghanistan is very porous, and part of the fencing has been done. The government is committed to finish that project, to be able to fence. The walls are very famous these days, even on the US-Mexico border. International politics are involved in walls. But for our own smuggling security, there's a lot of smuggling regarding oil taking place from Iran, and there's a lot of smuggling otherwise in the number of areas. And I'm sure as you improve your technology, as you improve your processes, things must change and will change. What was customs about? I was wondering about the name of custom, and I thought, and I'll go back and read about it. Custom means it's something which is not customary in this region of the world, and that's how it must have started. So our customs don't allow that, or if you do bring that, we must charge you something to be able to bring that. But there are 3 C's involved. One is that you go along with the customs of that country and your laws of customs. The other is to avoid corruption. That's a big C. That's very important. And the third C is the courtesy, because when you interact with people like me, ordinary people like me, people look at the courtesies of the process. It is absolutely natural for a person who is questioned about anything, whether he's a wrongdoer or not a wrongdoer, whether he knew the law or did not know the law, there is a matter of irritation which happens. And I'm sure customs officers are well trained, despite the fact that an individual can be rude. You do not have to react with rudeness. And I remember when you There are a lot of things happening without customs. For example, once upon a time, when I came back from India, maybe in the 70s or 80s, I brought some books. And my wife brought some clothes which she had bought. And when I reached Karachi customs, my wife's clothes were allowed to go in and my books were stopped. And I asked them, how can you do that? And I specifically pointed out the fact that, look, her stuff is much more valuable. She spent a lot of money. I didn't even spend a lot of money. I spent a little money. But you were able to stop in flow of information also. Today, the flow of information is customless. You see the pornography which comes from abroad, the sabotaging ideas sometimes which come from abroad, the fake news which comes from abroad, you're not able to handle that. So that's the fourth. We talked about land, sea and air. That's the fourth area where through software a lot of movement takes place. Through software a lot of stuff comes in and goes out. Goods used to be tangible, something which you could hold on, something which you could use. These goods are not tangible. So therefore you'll have to make progress in that area also to allow somehow to look at those possibilities where tangible goods are not there, but intangible goods worth billions of dollars are transacted every day. And a lot happens, when I was struggling for looking at the ability of Pakistanis to vote electronically, and I'm still pushing that idea for the overseas Pakistanis, in the Supreme Court, originally, the money also came physically, and therefore the customs used to examine how much money have you brought. But today, you'll be surprised if I put up a figure before you. Do you know how much money is exchanged through electronic means every day? And I asked that question from the Supreme Court when I presented my case for overseas Pakistanis voting, because everybody was doubting the fact that there will be a lot of corruption involved in cell phones or in transactions or in voting. And I asked them, do you have any idea how much money is transacted by electronic means? And one judge said maybe about $15-20 billion. I told them no, $3.5 trillion are exchanged every day through the electronic means. Tremendous amount. You see, and that is where smuggling would take place. That is where illegal money is floating around. So that's true. Customs area becomes bigger and bigger. I'm not sure whether that is your area, but it is the same concept not to allow anything which is not allowed to happen physically to be moved. No, it should not be allowed to be moved by electronic means also. So therefore, when you interact, the customs, Pakistan's customs, and then with the changing world, with today you read the news that 50 countries, people will come from 50 countries without visa. And why are we doing this? We are opening up Pakistan. We have ensured Pakistan. My credit to the armed forces of Pakistan, which has helped us establish security around the western and eastern borders of Pakistan and stop terrorism. And that security, the sense of security, has opened up Pakistan. And just to give you an example how badly these visa facilities improvement was necessary, and that affects you also, because a lot of people just come here, and the number of people which will start coming to Pakistan will be tremendous. So while you're talking of a building, the ability to have a piece of land to establish a building, I suggest to you that the next few years of Pakistan are going to bring a big change. And I just would give you one example, and I've been giving that also frequently. I went to Gilgit-Baltistan a few weeks ago, maybe a few months ago in fact, and I found out that until 2014, the maximum number of tourists, including foreign and local, were about 15,000 in a year, the maximum number of tourists. Now, and this year, 2.5 million. Imagine tourists went there. Imagine 15,000 4 years ago and 2.5 million this year. And this has happened without any communication, without any advertisement by the government. It is such a beautiful area, people have started going. Now imagine that with 50 countries getting visas to move around, even now our business visa people could not go to for tourism, because they were only allowed to be in a specific place. So the news today and the cabinet meetings which I have been aware of, looking at that issues, makes your work tremendous. The need for you to be there, it increases that tremendously. So I believe that things are changing, and I believe that you as a pillar of movement of people and goods, you'll examine people and everything, should remember the fact that 3 C's, that your customs are good, that the laws should be there, the second C is your courtesy is involved with people, and the third C is beware of corruption, because that's the very important factor. This is the message I can give you. The times are changing, Pakistan is changing, and your pillar in support of the changing and Naya Pakistan is very important. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
नाज़रीन, आप गुफ्तगू सुन रहे थे सदर ममलकत डॉक्टर